All right, I think we're live on the recording here of the first episode of the Educated Idiots podcast. You're looking at the Educated Idiots here themselves.
Emphasis
Th-
on the idiots.
Yeah, barely educated, fully an
yeah,
idiot.
yeah. It's more of like a title that we will want to wear. All right, so this is a group of friends getting together and wanting to talk about everyday headlines that we're hearing in the news and give it some real historical context. A self-described average Joe, aka myself, is going to bring questions to these two people in here that most people hopefully are thinking about, or we hope people are thinking about, wondering like what the hell is going on in the world. And so these two are history buffs and political knowledge hounds by trade and passion. No formal training there. I want to make sure we're clear on that piece.
Very clear
But
about that.
Yeah.
the goal is to connect people to the bigger picture. And so hopefully we get some good, fun, smart, unfiltered conversations from this to understand what the hell is actually going on in the world. So my name's Rhett. And I'll pass it over to Andrew or Cameron here to just kind of give a little what's up and an intro.
Yeah, I mean, my name's Andrew. Again, very much an educated idiot. By no means a historian or an expert in any realm, but with Cameron, history is the lens through which I think we view the entire world and like maybe everything. I'm constantly reading up on history. Again, I'm not an expert, but I think it's important to talk about these things like this, especially because we live in an age where it's all clips, sound bites, social media. People are throwing down hot takes. And we're going to see like these are extremely complicated scenarios and situations that require discussion and like a nuanced thought. So that's why, hoping we could bring that here.
Oh yeah.
Right on, boys. Well, I'm Cameron. Nice to join you guys here. Andrew, I'm not going to call you Andrew at all. You are Ekis to me, and you always will be. And for those curious, it is Rhett, not Brett, which is a common misconception there. Not
Some
a
housekeeping.
not a problem if you confuse the two. Really, the idea behind this is kind of stemmed from a lot of nights with the boys where it just ends up at 2 o'clock, and you're just talking about politics and history. We kind of figured that going into this, we're going to talk about things that maybe most people don't talk about normally on a day to day basis, but unfortunately has crept into our lives a lot more than what we were hoping for. We were hoping to keep this around, the beer pong tables at 2 o'clock, but because it's seeping into our lives left and right, we figured let's go ahead and talk about it here. My vision for this is really to give us a space to be able to talk about things that fascinate us that are happening around us, but coming from three people who aren't experts on anything, that we're just part of this experiment as well, and we have some thoughts. So that's kind of my thoughts going into this, and I'm excited to get it going.
Oh yeah. All right. I think that was pretty legit for our first intro, the pilot episode here. So I uh I titled this through my thoughts, the Iran excursion, because I've heard excursion tossed around. And
For
so
very good reason.
yeah. Yeah, I think we got some questions on like how the hell did we get into this and what's going on. But let's start off by like just a simple question of what's going on in Iran right now. Like, have we seen this coming? Just plain and simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a war. Like it's war. Like all we're hearing right now from the administration, it's literally Orwell's nightmare right now, where there's like doublespeak, and calling it like a special operation and like heavy combat operation. Like it's war. Anytime you're shooting munitions and killing people, it's a war. Um, and yeah, I would say the writing has been on the wall with this one for a long time. I mean, it goes back to 1979, the Iranian Revolution. I think honestly, though, you could even bring up the 12-year war. We're going to get into all these things. We're when we iced Soleimani in Iraq, right? So there's been tension with the U.S. and Iran for a long time, a long time. I think it's still surprising in a way. I think it didn't surprise a lot of people, but I think just the way it's happening and kind of the lack of direction and strategy that we're seeing is what's been surprising. And especially with the Strait of Hormuz not even being accounted for when we went into this, it does seem like it was I mean, it is an illegal offensive war. Now, there is a very valid argument on why we're for the U.S. interest when we're attacking Iran. But it's kind of like a shooting from the hip, and we're in a quagmire now. Like we're in an escalation trap that I don't see a clear way out of. But I mean, Cameron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should start with why we're calling this an excursion and not the war that it actually is. I mean, we are just completely bypassing the Constitution that technically is supposed to hold this country together. I mean, it's Article 1, Section 8, that is the Congress has the sole power to declare war. And there's a reason they're saying excursion. And when Pete Hegseth goes out there and starts saying war and then all of a sudden has to adjust it, there's legal reasons for that because they can't be admitting that we're in a freaking war. So good episode title because I think that's fair to point out that it is just gaslighting the shit out of us simply by calling it an excursion. But yeah, whatever. We'll let that one slide because there's enough to go around here. Yeah, what we're seeing is frustrating. As Ekis and I, being kind of the fans of history, this is the first time I think in my life, we're all around 30, under 33 years old or whatever. The first time that I'm actually seeing history repeat itself in our lifetime, which is really wild to see. The comparisons and parallels to what we grew up in and that kind of the formidable years of my knowledge of politics and stuff. We're watching this thing happen again, and it's interesting to hear the same talking points and some of the same faces still talking about the same reasons we're doing this. So I think it's important that we kind of call it out now, especially we didn't have this option in 2003. Obviously we were too young, but even then podcasts weren't getting up the ground. Our patron saint of podcast, Dan Carlin, hadn't even started yet. So like this is a new opportunity for Americans to actually sort of voice our concerns about it. And there's a few things that I think getting into it, we sort of need to get across here. This is in no way like criticism of any religions, any faiths, anything like that. I think the what's really gotten murky here is we're crossing lines in between criticizing foreign policy and people thinking that's criticizing religions. And I'm gonna shit on a few of them here while we're
Yeah,
talking
I
through
know.
this because
It
no,
does
I don't
get into
subscribe to any of it.
really, really dicey territory, though. I'm happy you're bringing this up because it does. Like, it gets on things that people care a lot about, that people have lived and died for. Like, it hits on things that are really, really, really sensitive to people. So
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think if we're gonna give kind of the background here, we have to do two things. I think we'd give the actual historical background of how we got to this situation, where we are with Iran, and basically how Iran and the Persian people started. And then I think we do kind of need to address the religious aspects of both Iran, Israel, and the United States, because it gets murky on all three sides, and it's three different religions, all Abrahamic, but no one would ever believe that the way that they're bickering and fighting here. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this one. Is just make sure that if this ever does get clipped or whatever, just know that the difference between criticizing a government and criticizing the religion, two starkly different things. You're allowed to do both.
Yes. Agreed.
love it. Um, just like on the specific like nomenclature of this war excursion, knowing that we're trying to like tiptoe around war. The Department of
Of
Security,
war.
or yeah, I mean we've
That's what
renamed
they
it the
War.
changed their
Department
name
of
to,
War,
which is
right?
insane.
So we've renamed it the Department of War. We're going into this, but like, how are we skirting that? Just curiosity here. How are we skirting that? Um, are we saying it's not a war because we're acting in like a defensive manner because of this like rhetoric around the intercontinental ballistic missiles? Like, is that how
Well,
we're avoiding?
you need a casus belli, which is a good Latin term, which is justification for war. And it matters. It really does matter. Like even dictatorial lunatics need a casus belli. Like even Hitler had one, right, with his Lebensraum and like living space for the Germans. Like you need a legit justification for war for so many reasons, because you need people to have a will to fight. It's for managing your reputation with other nations across the country. Like it really does matter what your reason for going to war is. And we are tiptoeing around that, which is part of the problem here, because we keep saying that it's regime change, and then we say it's the nuclear missiles, but then we say we destroyed the nuclear missile facilities in June, right? So this is where it gets into that interplay of, is it the tail wagging the dog, where this was Israel that might have played a factor in pushing us toward this? Is this just a regime change war for the military industrial complex to do its thing? It's all those things, but we're unwilling to say why, which is part of why this is an issue, why people are pissed off, because we haven't gotten a straight answer that has been coherent and uh, backed up by consistency from this regime at all. It's the goalposts change every time Trump gets up
Yeah,
on the podium.
it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at least George Bush waited a year or whatever before he went on that aircraft carrier saying mission accomplished. This guy couldn't even wait 6 days before he tweeted out that it's a complete and total victory. And now we're day 17 or whatever, and it's just gotten worse. So I think that's an important point, is we're missing the messaging on this one. Like Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld at least like knew how to package this one together, and this has just been
Yeah,
a
we skipped
complete
right over it.
disaster from messaging wise. I was
Yeah.
sitting there yesterday, at least in Baghdad and early Vietnam and Afghanistan, the first like month through like first 6 months, pretty good for the US. A lot of good stories. Our military's awesome. Our military's doing this. We're already running into the bad things, and it's week 2. And that's terrifying. And what I fall asleep to, or what I'm trying to fall asleep to, and what just keeps flashing in my memory while I close my freaking eyes, is JD Vance, who has been so anti-war, coming out and saying the difference this time is that we have a smart president, that the other presidents were dumb presidents. That is the justification from the vice president of the United States, who completely changed his opinion on foreign wars and forever wars. And his justification is Donald Trump is smart and the other leaders were dumb. So in case you didn't have anything to worry about, that one is just chef's kiss brilliant. Unbelievable propaganda. You're making Goebbels blush. I I do think
It's just like when Woodrow Wilson campaigned on his whole second term on, like, we're not going to get into an international war. We're not going to get into an international war. Wins the election, and then we join in World War I. Like, there's a precedent for this, and it's happened. Where a big part of their platform was, we are the party of no new wars. The first thing we do, literally the first thing we do, is kidnap Maduro, which was a chess move for this, by the way. And then we go into Iran. And it's the complete lack of strategy, though, is the thing, and clear answers, where this is a real issue, where it muddies the waters. That's why, literally, and this isn't even political, but everything that has come out of the Trump administration during this has been through smoke and mirrors. It's been a lie. We can't get a straight answer. Like, it's insane.
it's infuriating. They take us for just a bunch of sheep on it, and it's like, I get that that's how you got elected, is you're able to lie and say all these things and people believe you. But now it's hitting people's like pocketbooks, their gas tanks. Like there are things that the normal American doesn't think about that is now actually getting shoved in their face for the first time in a long time. I think since 2008 and that recession, you haven't really had the impacts to the day-to-day life that the apolitical people out there seem to like live in this land that politics doesn't matter. It's like this time it actually is affecting you. And unfortunately, we're kind of here to break it to you. We have no plan. There's no coherent argument on what we're doing next. I mean,
Honestly,
we're going to get into the money and stuff, but
it seems like the
Jesus
plan
Christ.
was no plan, on, like, in a weird way. We've lifted
Yeah.
sanctions on Russia, right, during all this, to trying to ease the oil. So we're helping fund a direct enemy of ours into Ukraine. We just lifted sanctions on Iran that we're currently at war with, trying to ease the oil supply. So, like, none of it makes sense. And again, Strait of Hormuz is closed. We have even Trump gets on there and says, like, Navy's totally destroyed, it's totally gone, but then it's still closed, right? There's a lot of interplay with the markets, but and now there's a ground invasion that may or may not take place. We've given that ultimatum that recently just happened, where he said you have 48 hours to open the strait, or
We're sitting in that 48 hours. Just for if anyone ever does listen to this or gets the timestamp, where we are is probably hour 22 2 on the 48-hour deadline that the dude tweeted on his stupid fucking platform saying that they have 48 hours to open it, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned for that one. We'll figure out what the weird Truth Social thing meant.
And what
Um,
what day of war are we in? Just to
Oh man, well, it
timestamp this.
started. We're getting close to a month now. I think it started like February 28th. Is when those first
Okay.
strikes happened.
Cameron, if I hear you type and looking that up, but I want to keep going down this like lack of definition path. But before I do that, Ekis, you mentioned the Maduro kidnapping was a chess move in this. What's that about? What's going on there?
Well, I mean, it was definitely a play with oil supply, right? Like a big part of that was so that it was a regime change war so that we could get a new leader in there that would play nice with the US so we could snag their oil supplies. We're already seeing the effects of that because we've totally blockaded Cuba because we also want to do a regime change war in Cuba. So they're totally blockaded right now. And there's a Russian tanker actually headed there. It's going to arrive in a few days and there's going to be some sort of showdown. They're like, that's not going to be good because we told them no oil to Cuba and Russia's taking the buyer. But it was a play to flex American might and muscle. It was a play to continue to consolidate America's grip around global oil supply. And it also gave Trump a sugar high. Like he was able to go in there, kidnap a sovereign leader of a nation. And it was an amazing military operation, even though it's illegal and it's Team America World Police. Like it's insane that we could in a night completely run a coup in like a few hours is insane.
Yeah.
But it gave him the sugar high. We're like, yeah, now we go into Iran, we kill the Ayatollah, it'll be job well done, we wipe our hands clean, but it's not going that way. It's not going that way because Iran is different. It's a massive country of 90 million people that has been preparing for this for 40 years. The whole government of Iran exists in defiance of the United States and Western power. So like this is what they've been building up for their entire existence. So it definitely is. The Maduro situation plays a part of that. Same with the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier that was a part of that whole operation, which has now been it's has the longest. I think they're about to have like the longest deployment for someone at
since
sea
Vietnam.
since Vietnam, and so they did the Maduro operation. Then they were sent to the Persian Gulf. And now it's getting sent to Crete for repairs because the laundry room was set on fire. So like
For 30 hours. Dude, it was on fire for
What?
30
yeah,
hours.
well, there's a lot of conspiracy theories of that. Well, it's that it took us like 12 years to build this thing. It is an absolute miracle of human engineering. This aircraft carrier, it
It's
can
crazy.
stay out to sea for like 25 years because it has two
Wow.
nuclear reactors on it. It's like state of the art proprietary U.S. military technology that is now getting sent. Uh, with its tail between its legs. It's on fire. It's getting repaired in Crete. So like our most important weapon in the eve before this ground invasion, our most powerful asset in the Persian Gulf is taken out because the laundry was set on fire. This isn't corroborated. It's conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, but there's conspiracy theories that the crew set the fire in the laundry because they've been deployed for so long. They want to go home. Then they don't want to fight a war.
Interesting.
They don't want to go fight a war in Iran for Israel, but again, that's all
Yeah.
speculation. I don't know if that's true, but it is true that the laundry room was caught on fire and it's heading to Crete to get repaired. So major asset that is now taken out.
Insane. That I just looked up the cost because I saw this the other day and it just blew my
13
mind. I wanted to
billion.
make sure I had it right. $13.3 billion for that ship. Nuts. Absolutely crazy. And yeah, they
Yeah.
apparently the sailors have been sleeping on like the floor and stuff because a bunch of the cots all burned down.
Yeah.
So those poor guys are just roughing it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think
But
they're going to be
Wow.
re-enlisting anytime soon after this
no,
one.
I can't imagine. Well, what I think, because we are the uneducated idiots here, I think we should run through just a quick little timeline of Iran, because I think, unfortunately, Americans, I think it was like 25% can actually point out Iran on a map. So, before we get too wonky and all that shit,
Let's push.
why don't we kind of run through how we got here?
Let's do
Because
it.
even I was a little bit surprised looking into some of the facts on it. This country's only 12 years older than Israel.
Do we need to
By the
bring up
official name.
Iran on a map? Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, if you can put graphics on here just so that anyone who watches this, at least they'll be part of the 20% who actually knows where the hell it is. Here, a little spoiler. It's in between the other two forever wars that we just got out of. This is the Oreo filling of that bullshit.
All right, let's
But I think to kind of go over like just the short history, we really don't have to go back, to Cyrus the Great, even though the Persian people have been around, I don't know, I guess 2000 years, 1500 years, something crazy like that.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction is that Iran is not they're not part of the Arab world. They're Persian. Like they have their own they are a part of a different branch of ethnicity in the Middle Eastern tree of peoples. And so that is something important to keep in mind. So have you brought that up?
Totally. And we're going to get into the kind of the religious schism between the two countries as well, because Iran is a little bit of a unique situation in the Muslim world as well. So we'll kind of touch on that. But, Persia was the official name until 1935. So 4 years before Hitler invaded Poland, they were actually renamed to Iran, the Iran that we know today. It originally was under a dictatorship. Kind of like those states, they didn't really know what they were falling into, because the one lesson we learned from World War II is that oil was going to power the 20th century and beyond. And as we know, the oil rich regions have been in free fall and chaos ever since. And that has a lot to do with the West and not putting our priorities over the priorities of anyone down there. And with Iran in particular, a lot comes back to the United Kingdom, the United States, and the Soviets. So we're kind of starting from there, just kind of going from 35. In 1951, their prime minister actually attempted to nationalize British oil into their national region, which that really caused some red flags for the markets and the West,
Oh, yeah.
which pretty much directly leads into like 53 when we decided to stage the CIA overthrow of Mossadegh in the coup d'etat in August of that year. And that's where you get the CIA starting to kind of flex their muscle. Really after World War II and then getting into the Cold War is when the CIA goes, not the OSS, right, Ekis?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going from the OSS during World War II. They really get their feet going there as the CIA in the 50s. And that's, when we start seeing them overthrow people. And they did in Iran, kind of like they did in South American countries in the decades following. But that's kind of when we see the change there to a more westernized Iran. But really, what started alienating the people was the Shah started replacing Islamic mementos and calendars and their society for more westernized versions, or appealing more to the Persian Empire even, which really started to form the cracks between the more religious and sort of the more progressive Iranians at the time. Led to really in 1978, you start getting the rioting, the mass deportations, and the strikes against the Shah's the rule there. In response, in 1978, he actually did enforce martial law. So kind of leads us to 1979. 1979 is when everything changes. From before, really British, Israeli, U.S. backed country, to all three of them basically severed ties after 1979. And that was when the Islamic Revolution hit the country. The first Ayatollah Khomeini was actually in France. My beloved France, didn't know that. When he was exiled and actually returned in February of 79 to kind of encourage and brew the revolution. Under his guidance, they basically declared themselves a theocratic republic guided by Islamic principles. So this is where you start seeing the hard lines come into Iran. They at this point they did change the name in April of 79 to the Islamic Republic of Iran, so the name that we know it today. And important to note, this is when the diplomatic ties with Israel and their strategic alliance was dissolved. So before this, Israel actually worked with an Iranian, basically their version of the CIA, to help stop kind of terrorist plots and kind of the more hard line Islamic plots that were going on in the time. They actually worked together for about 20 years there, which surprised me when I was doing this. But in 1979, that completely stopped. And that's really when the death to America, death to Israel thing started, was in 79 during this time. wrapping up on that year, this is when the U.S. got the hostages taken from the embassy in Tehran. Ikas, if you want to kind of shed some light on that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, and to even back up more, I think it's important to understand everything that you just went through because the reason why we're in a regime change war now is because we did a regime change war in 1953. So it is the revolution in 1979 is directly related to the coup that we did in 1953 because
Have have we ever had a regime change war that's worked out?
That's a
um,
good question.
I actually will get to that because I have a list of
Okay,
every
okay.
single coup
The
regime change war
Germans,
that
I
we've
guess.
gone into.
All
We'll
right.
get to
I,
that.
I digress.
Uh,
Sorry, go ahead.
but it was Mohammed Mossadegh. He was democratically elected. Again, as Cameron said, he wanted to nationalize the oil, and the CIA put in a king. Like they literally replaced their democratically elected leader with a king who was completely sympathetic to Western powers. He was a puppet leader. And it turns out when you put in an illegal puppet leader, they don't have the best interest of their people in mind by design. And so actually amazing because you have, like Cameron said, you have really conservative clerics that were teaming up with like the far left wing activists in Iran because they really felt that they had sold out their nation to the Western powers, that they had completely bent the knee to the West at the same time that Israel was getting started up as a country that was completely aligned with Western powers. And so when this revolution happens, it was a full national effort to kick out this king that they didn't ask for, that was totally subservient to Western powers. And while that's happening, they decided to storm the embassy, um, the U.S. embassy that was in Iran, and they ended up taking a bunch of hostages. It was a huge ordeal. This was happening at the end of the Carter administration. It really is called the whole October surprise, where Reagan thought that the hostages would be released and it would help Carter win. It was a massive deal. There's also a good conspiracy theory about that. I don't know if we'll get into it,
Yeah,
but
Reagan was behind it, but whatever, it's
yeah.
fine.
And this
What?
is
Okay.
there is.
All
The
right.
conspiracy is that we'll get into it. It's a podcast. It's our podcast. We'll
Yeah,
get in.
let's do it.
Dude, I
Well,
fucking won.
yeah, this is right at the end of the Carter administration, and again, there was an October surprise where the Reagan administration was afraid that that Carter would be able to broker this deal, the hostages would get released, and then it would give him a bump in the election, and Carter would win. And so then there is actually a lot of smoking guns. Like this isn't complete like insanity. There's like a lot of people within Reagan's regime and cabinet that corroborate this story. But the story goes that while this hostage situation is going on and this presidential campaign is going on, that the Reagan campaign was on the side brokering a deal with the Iranian government to keep the hostages in Iranian hands so that it would hurt the Carter administration. And then when Reagan came in, Reagan's like, "Hey, if these hostages stay, I'm gonna win. When I'm president, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours." The hostages did stay in Iranian hands, and literally minutes after Reagan won, and it was minutes after his inauguration speech, they released the hostages. And he was like, "Yeah, job well done. Like I'm president for a few seconds, and I'm already releasing hostages." So that's what happens. Again, like if you want to believe the conspiracy, you can or not. But it was a massive, massive, massive U.S. Scandal. This hostage
Yeah, it was
situation, and it is.
bullshit, and we screwed over our peanut farmer with a good heart. That was the downfall of this goddamn country is when we started screwing over our farmers.
Yeah, and this is when massive tensions obviously between the U.S. and Iran because there's U.S. hostages. Now it's our worst nightmare happening where we have a leader that we handpicked to be sympathetic to U.S. policy that is now replaced by a Shia Muslim cleric and that was the huge movement of this revolution was death to America. Like we're no longer going to be subservient to these Western powers that want to take over our country and our people and our religion. And that's a massive. And I mean, the Ayatollah was just killed at the start of this war. So like, we're in the middle of this story right now with what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't worry, there's already another one already in there, who's younger and apparently more far right. So we kind of just like sped up the succession line and got someone worse, but whatever. I
Well, it
loved our
was
president saying,
Well,
Khamenei's son, right?
"Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
He's only like 56 or something, and the other guy was like 82. So we
And
just
he may
replaced
or may not be
one.
alive right now. That's also like speculation. He
Yeah.
actually hasn't been seen, and it would probably be smart for Iran to not, like, if he was dead, to not, make it known.
Thousand
But
percent.
we're into that
Yeah.
fog of war era with this.
Well, the
Um,
president last week was, or when this whole thing started, he's like, we have a whole list of people that we had in mind for this, like all this line of succession. And then he's like, but that guy died. That guy died. Like,
yeah,
that was killed in an Israeli strike. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, then who the fuck
that's
is
the
left,
thing.
bud?
I know that.
I
Well,
mean,
that's the walking contradiction. Because if this was a regime change, where you would think we would have a handpicked person, like we did with Maduro, right? We had a handpicked person we put in right away. But he's admitting that we killed all those people. So clearly, you didn't really care about the plan that much, if there even was a plan. So is it regime change? And this is where, again, where there is no clear answer on why we're here.
yeah.
No,
Well, and I think
there's
that sorry, go Cameron.
no, I mean, I think you're right, but I think if we kind of do a little investigating here, there might be a clear answer. And it has to do with a country that is not ours, but a little bit west of Iran. And I think, it's going to be hard to tell this story without getting into Benjamin Netanyahu and exactly where this all went wrong and the influence that we had going into this, because I've never seen a U.S. military operation be so short sighted and be so disjointed so quickly that unless Pete Hegseth is as drunk as everyone thinks he is, which maybe, it does appear that like we were dragged into this. And I can't remember in US history any point that we've been dragged into anything. The American people have been kicking and screaming into World War I and II, but for the most part, I think those have aged pretty well. This one is not aging well. This one is not
Yeah.
going to age well. And the lack of vision or plan here is only going to lead to more questions about why the fuck we got into this. Um, and I think
Yeah.
we should kind of get into that part as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before doing that, just like, well, this might kind of go hand in hand with it here, is like, without this clear vision or without a clear statement of why we're getting into this, like, that makes it super hard to define what success looks like, or what an end to this is, right? I think from my perspective, it's like, you have Hegseth saying we'll be there like what, you're saying like 4 to 5, 5 to 6 weeks. You got Trump saying, hey, it's already, it's been completely demolished, it's been completely wiped out, it's been a huge success. But then he also comes back and says like, I'll, it's over when I feel it in my bones. I don't know if you guys saw that or heard that, but
Yeah,
it's like,
I missed that
what the hell
one.
does that mean? And I think, I don't know, from my perspective outside looking in, when we don't have a definition of why we're there, um, I feel like we're going to lose the support of the population of that regime, and the opposers to the regime in Iran, that we saw like initially like cheering, egging, like being excited about this, because I don't think it's like rocket science to say that the current regime there is bad news, right? And there's a lot of oppression that's happening due to that regime in place. And so seeing all that celebration, um, I imagine we start to see that celebration like fade pretty quickly as we like continue to use all this rhetoric, or Hegseth uses this rhetoric of like, complete and utter death and destruction. Like we are raining down on them. Like it just seems like there is no care for the other side of this, that we were saying we want to come in and replace this current regime. And to your guys' point, like if we're going to get into something like this, you'd think that we'd be, hand in hand, and have a plan in place and somebody there to say, hey, get in. I guess I know you're mentioning earlier, like all of the invasions and regime change, like whatever endeavors we've been on in the past, most of those times, maybe you have more context on this. Like, I think we've had somebody in place solidified, and that person like rises up pretty quickly, have they not?
Yeah, they have, and that's why um, I think any sort of rhetoric about the people of Iran is very disingenuous. I really don't think the U.S. does give any flying fucks about the people of Iran, and it's the demographics are the same everywhere, right? Like a lot of the activists and people that would be against this regime, that are maybe left-leaning and against, what the Ayatollah did, are in the cities. That's where a lot of it's just where this happens, where there's a more educated populace, and that's where you're around more people and cultures. Like, cities tend to be hubs of this defense movement, and we're killing all of them right now. We're bombing the hell out of all of their
Yeah.
cities, and it's out in the rural areas where you have these hardline conservative, people that are very much aligned with what the theocracy was. So we're not touching. You're right. We're going to have to go after them one by one, just like we did in Afghanistan, and it didn't work. And it's the other
Yeah.
thing. It's the other difference between the country too, right? Because in some of these other regime change wars, like Nicaragua or the Dominican Republic, these were small island nations for a large part of it, and were developing. And Iran is, again, it's a country of 90 million people that has been preparing for this for their entire existence, and so it's different again. And because he was successful with Maduro, which was it was a successful regime change war that we just fought. I think he had a sugar high. Trump thought that we can just do this again in Iran, but we're running into a much more complex nation that is set up for a war with Western powers. That is what it has been building towards for a long time. And so it's different, and it's a quagmire. And it gets really complicated too when it comes to the whole nuclear stuff, which we're going to have to get into at some point. But that's what I think it is. Like, I think it's relying on the people, which is what they said. Like, it's your time to rise up. That's what he said. Like, that's not going to happen because, again, they're not part of the Arab world. They are Persian, and so it does get to a point where your your culture and history and civilization is now threatened from Western powers, which is what they've been telling their populace for the last 40 years. Is, hey, the West wants to kill all of us, and that's essentially what we're trying to do. I think that's why we're skirting around our real reason for war, because I think it is complete destruction of the country of Iran, and then
Yes.
breaking it up into pieces and giving it all over the Middle East. But again, as a casus belli, that's not popular, because a lot of people are not going to want to fight a war where we just systematically destroy a nation. And so they keep dancing around it, and they will continue to dance around it, and they will never be honest about that objective. But that's what they want. That's what Israel wants, the destruction of Iran, and the U.S. wants the destruction of Iran. But we're not going to come out and say it. And so that's why we have all these
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, Trump, they literally had that whole, like, this is for the people, they're executing protesters, like a humanitarian crisis. The next day, they bombed those oil depots, causing the most apocalyptic scenes I've ever seen. And it's just
Yeah, that's
raining
wild.
oil on the people of Tehran, a city of 9 million people or something. It's like the environmental effects, the health effects of that is going to last generations. If it's raining oil upon your people, it's like we did that the day after we said that this was like a humanitarian mission or some bullshit. I'm like, okay, like clearly you're lying.
One of the first strikes of the war was a school, and we killed 180 schoolgirls, like 7 to 12 year
Yeah.
olds were killed with one of the first strikes. Whether it was Israel or the U.S., it doesn't matter. It's this is the
Yeah.
coalition that is fighting
Still
Iran. So we
bombs made
we
by the US.
immediately kill 180 kids, and then say,
Yeah.
"Time to rise up, time to time to take
See,
over." Like, who is the evil empire here? It's both, honestly. Like, it is not.
yeah.
That's where it gets dicey with this, because obviously. Obviously, it would be a good thing for America to win this, but it's like, to see it as a good versus evil is not the case at all. It really is an illegal war against another evil regime, and it gets really complicated, because Israel is right to, like, that's the thing. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, Iran has killed a lot of Americans, and they are definitely agents of chaos, like 100%.
1,000%.
They are enemies of the United
Yeah.
States, and they have killed a lot of people. They will continue to kill a lot of people. But it's just, again, we started a regime change war, and now we're fighting it with another regime change war, and it's just instability that we caused, and we're trying to fix it with more instability, with no real clear plan in sight, except for Israel's ultimate interests. Like, if we win this war, I don't think America's any stronger for it, but Israel certainly will be. And so, again, is it the tail wagging the dog? Is this really for American
Yeah.
safety at home? I don't know.
No, honestly,
So
look at what Israel's doing right now. What's the other country that Israel's going after? Have you seen the scenes out of fucking Beirut? It
Lebanon,
is
yeah, so they're going to try and seize
wild what they're
Lebanon wall.
doing to that population center. And that is being completely underreported and not talked about.
It's
And it's
true.
because Israel has this whole Hezbollah message that it's the same thing as Hamas in Gaza. They're using it as this cover to bomb a population center without any specific targets because they blend in with the populace or whatever the fuck their excuse is. But it's like, there's a reason that we're not hearing about this part of it in the United States, because it just shows the hand of what Israel is doing. This is not a imminent threat type situation. This is them airing out their grievances after the last 45 years of whatever the fuck has been going on. You They started with Gaza. They saw no pushback. I mean, the Europeans have tried, but if the US is like, go for it, then you can just go for it. And they took that as, fuck it, let's just go after the big daddy. Let's do what we wanted to do this whole time. They've never been able to convince a US president that, hey, this is beneficial to the United States or smart even in the slightest. But goddamn it, they've been trying. If Netanyahu had his way, we wouldn't have gone into Iraq the first time. We would have gone straight to Iran.
Yeah, it's
But if
true.
you do look at the speeches back then, it's the same fucking argument from Netanyahu about Saddam Hussein. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. He's just doing it again. And he finally got an administration dumb enough to do it. And when I hear JD Vance saying that we're the smart ones, I'm like, you guys have fallen for this fucking trap so easily. It just makes me sick. Makes my head spin.
It's
So
true.
you're saying if JD Vance had a podcast, it'd be called Educated Smart Ones instead of Educated Idiots like us?
Couch
No, JD
boy.
Vance would be whatever I said last week. Don't believe it. That's the name of his fucking podcast.
Believe me now.
Or Marco Rubio.
So,
He could be the guest host. Piece of
Well,
shit.
and
Yeah.
that's a big thing though, because that like Marco Rubio did say, and he got in a lot of trouble for it. And we should even pull up these clips, but he did say, we were afraid that Israel was going to strike first, and then Iran would retaliate, so we decided to strike first. And so
Yeah.
it and it is
It was
just
a rare moment
historical.
of truth in the Trump administration, that
Yeah,
little admission by Rubio.
And again, like this, like Trump did make the active choice to go to war with Iran. You know, I don't think he was necessarily like they're gonna, because they will probably try to play that card and say, oh well, he was tricked by Israel to go into war. Like he made the choice, but it is historical fact that Israel has been really lobbying for this war for the past 40 years. And again, there's plenty of clips of
Yeah.
Netanyahu again saying that they're 6 months out from a nuclear weapon. They're 6 months out. You know, all the way back in the 90s, he was saying that. And that is also another interesting point about their nuclear program, which I think we should get into the history of that a little bit, because their nuclear program started in the 50s under Eisenhower, under some like Atoms for Peace program, which is just like
Yeah.
very like 50s like utopian idea. But it was the U.S. that helped build all of their nuclear facilities, which I didn't realize when I was researching for this, which I found to be amazing. And the whole time it's been kind of like, and the public image is that they will have nuclear facilities for energy and scientific research, and they will not build them for weapons. And immediately, people have not trusted them which is fair. You know, it's fair to not trust a country that they will follow those rules. But since the 50s, we have been signing treaties with them to have, you know, international community that's looking at their nuclear facilities to make sure that they don't go above the threshold to make bombs. This has been going on since the 50s. And in the 90s, though, the negotiations were taking place with France, I believe. And they reached an agreement to again have like these international watchdogs, and they were found in breach of those. Like there has been multiple times where again publicly they're like, yeah, you know, just using this for research, and then behind closed doors they are actively enriching uranium. So this is happening. It's almost like they have the ingredients to bake a cake, right? And we keep catching them like mixing the batter and then slapping their wrists, and then they go back to mixing it again. Um, so
Phenomenal analogy there.
they have been like they have been actively trying to develop the ingredients for a nuclear bomb. Like that is true. And for a lot of people, that's all they need to hear. They're like, this is reason enough. Especially
Yeah.
Israel's perspective on the right, they say that this is reason enough why we need to go to war, because if they could have a nuke, they're going to point it at Israel and it's going to be game over. But it is also important to remember that they still have a long way to go before they actually build a nuclear bomb. Like they have the ingredients, but it is a massive logistical and engineering feat to get enough uranium to then process it and then engineer it into a warhead and then have the process in place to deploy it, and then you have to test it. Like they have a long way to go. And also to Cameron's point, we've also heard this before. We heard this with Iraq, where there's a video of Netanyahu saying without a shadow of a doubt, without any question, Saddam Hussein has nuclear weapons and we have to go to war with him immediately. And that was all one giant lie to the American people. So it makes it really messy because yes, yes, they do have nuclear materials, and and now they certainly are building a nuke. Like
Of course.
100%, they're building one now.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well,
But also, we've been lied to about this. Like, this has already been used as a casus belli in Iraq that we have to go to war. We have to do this destabilization and kill thousands and millions of people because he can have a bomb. And so this is where it gets really messy because both sides are true at the same time, but also they're extremely dishonest about it.
yeah. Um, and Cameron, I mean, Ekis was hitting a little bit on like Israel's interest in attacking Iran and how that's been there for these years. You had mentioned like some deeper rooted interest there and some history around that, and so I'd love to hear that part of it if there's anything to like add on what Ekis was saying there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to address the religious situation in the region. I mean, the Israel was appointed a state in what, 70 or 47 or 49, 47, I think.
Yeah.
And we basically, Palestine was a British territory. We not a beautiful part of US history, but they did ask if they wanted to move to, like, I think it was Montana was going to be the Jewish state. And they looked in like Siberia and I think Poland, like all over the place. No one basically wanted to take the Jewish people after the Holocaust, which again is something that we just don't teach in our history books. So what we ended up doing was taking the British territory of Palestine and splitting it into two, making the Arab side on one side and obviously the Jewish state on the other. The problem with that is there were people there, and this isn't like we went in as like a peacekeeping mission. What Israel has done since then is expand the borders over and over again with their settlements and moving into areas that were not designed for Israel and have been set apart for Gaza. And this is really the culmination of what we're seeing in the Gaza Strip coming to a head, really kicked off by the October 7th situation. That was just the fodder that it needed to finally give Israel a justification to attack wherever they wanted. And I was seeing reports last night of settlers going in and burning cars and taking out different places in Palestine last night. So this isn't a new thing, and this has kept going. Where Iran comes into this, where it is very interesting, I think, on the religious side of this, is Iran is on the opposite side of Saudi Arabia when it comes to the Sunni and the Shias, which I'm sure you've heard that term before. And what that is a schism within Islam that basically it's their origin story. So essentially, after Muhammad died, and oh God, I don't know the year, but like let's say
Six,
600,
700s.
800,
Yeah.
something like that. Okay. Um, basically, there was two thoughts that the next leader should be appointed by like a group of elders or whatever to lead the religion. That is the Sunnis. The Shias, on the other hand, believe that Muhammad himself appointed his cousin
Yeah, it was like
to
his
lead,
brother-in-law or something, like,
yeah,
named
brother-in-law,
Ali.
something like
Yeah.
that, to lead the religion. And that is literally the difference between Sunni and Shias, and they fucking hate each other for it.
Yeah. It's
And the
all like a
Sunnis are way
succession
bigger. They're like
argument.
85% or something of the religion. It's huge. Like, Saudi Arabia is very Sunni, and Qatar and all of those, Kuwait, very Sunni. What's unique about Iran is it is the only country where it is a Shia majority, and it is like 92% or something. I was looking at it earlier. And that's very weird for the Arab world. Everywhere else is, I don't think I saw anything else that was above 50%. So that's kind of what you need to understand when it comes to like the religious is even the Arab side of this have their own conflicts with Iran. And in the same sort of breath that Israel does this, they say it's all about defense, that if they don't have the weapons, they'll be destroyed. The same kind of goes for Iran's thinking is for the last 50 years, if they weren't equipped, if they weren't the ones supplying proxy groups, if they weren't the one like actively fighting, they would be eliminated. So we're essentially seeing two different religions saying the same thing, and they're just butting up against each other because they fucking hate each other. And this has been a long time coming. And again, this is Netanyahu and hard right, like Israeli faction. This is what they've been waiting for. They love this because the whole idea of a greater Israel is biblical. Like this is religious on all fronts. They're fighting because of it, but ultimately Israel does not want to be this tiny little sliver resting against the Mediterranean. This is meant to be a larger and honestly a religious war.
Yeah.
And Iran is just the perfect person to start this with. And obviously, Gaza and Lebanon, Israel doesn't give a fuck about any of those places because they don't view it as their land. They view it as biblically theirs.
For
Yeah.
a historical kind of comparison, I think of Manifest Destiny within the West, right? Where you drop colonies on a continent and then tell them that they have the God-given right to keep moving westward and take all that land, even though people are already there. It's exactly what's happening in Israel, where there's people there, they were dropped there and then told you have the God-given right to take this land from the Nile to the Euphrates is what's promised to them in the religious texts. And that's what the Mike Huckabee clip was when he talked to Tucker Carlson. They had this whole debate. And Mike Huckabee, who is the ambassador to Israel, said, "Yeah, they'd be fine if they took it all." And this is like an actual part of the policy, which is where it gets dicey. Because again, we're like, this is where you mix religion with the politics, and some people will
Yeah.
deny it. Some people will say it plays a bigger part than it does, or it doesn't. Um, but that's what I like to think about is like manifest destiny for the Middle East, which is what a combo.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great comparison of it. And Israel is just like the worst place to put a religious battle. I mean, Jerusalem itself is, I would love to go there. It is fascinating because you're going to get relics from all three of the major religions there. And that's kind of the reason why the U.S. Embassy had always been in Tel Aviv before Trump in the first term moved it to Jerusalem, because there's a lot of underlying things that we don't want to put our foot in. And Jerusalem was a big one because, again, all three of them view that as a holy site. And by the U.S. simply moving it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem was a sign that we don't give a fuck about your part of this religious area. We care about Israel's and we care about the Christian side, which we
Yeah.
don't have to get into the Christian nationalist stuff. I know Ekis and I agree on that part, but that might be getting a little bit too into the weeds on this.
Episode 2.
Uh, but it,
So
it is important that we like keep in mind the religious part of all of this. Like
It is a
our
factor for
politicians here,
sure.
there's the religion. It's their politician. I mean, they're more upfront about it in Israel and Iran because they basically are run by religious clerics. We
It
technically have a president for now.
it's a factor for sure. Pete Hegseth has a Deus Vault tattoo on his arm, and he wrote a book called The American Crusade. So, like, religion does play a major factor on both sides. Like, it just does, and it's just one of those unfortunate things that makes it so much more complicated and vicious. Like it really does complicate things to a level, but it absolutely is a factor on both the
yeah.
American Israel and the Shia side.
W- Sidebar. What's a day? What'd you say? A Deus vault tattoo?
Yeah, I mean it's he has a lot of iconography and words that call back to the Christian Crusades of the Middle Ages. And again, he wrote a book called The American Crusade. So ag- I mean, again, like if you have a tattoo that is in reference to a Christian takeover of the Holy Land, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, you're in
you've
it.
been pretty clear about where you where you lie on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I,
I think just as a little refresher about the Crusades, it was basically Christians getting together in their home countries, getting told by their king of like, hey, let's go fuck up some Islamic people for a bit. And they would just start from wherever. So just in case you haven't done any research on the Crusades, it was really just killing for killing's sake. Because then they
yeah.
would just come home.
And,
Yeah.
the first one was surprisingly successful, actually, and it was maybe one of the most amazing, like, underdog stories ever, and the rest were complete disasters. They just were caused so much pain and suffering.
Yeah. What else did we
Sorry.
have
Give me.
on?
Give me. Give me 1 sec here.
Yep.
Lost rep boy. And we haven't even gotten to the Kurds.
Yeah. That's always a fun one. How can we alienate these poor people even further? We
Do
found
I
out that they
mean,
kind of liked us in the 80s and we're like, "Yep, we're just going to utilize you guys every time."
do you think, I know where I land on this, but do you think a ground invasion is imminent? That's where this is heading?
I think I mean, I heard Lindsey Graham this morning basically like leading into ground forces where America does the most damage. He was saying, "Look at Iwo Jima, like we can do that." I'm like, "Buddy, bad
Wow.
example of an island. Like what the fuck?" It's crazy.
It
Uh,
is crazy.
all right. I know. God damn. There's so much to this. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just it's mind blowing. And so to what you said earlier, Cameron, it's like it's for some reason I have like a little bit of like hesitation on diving into some of these like government versus like religious aspects of this because it is such like a hairy, like dicey
Mm,
situation on it.
really is.
Um, and it's just it's from somebody outside looking in, it's like it feels so the knowledge of the history in this area feels so great that it's almost like too much to comprehend and take on. And I feel like a lot of that comes from hearing just, you hear you hear different sides of the story, right? You see different sides in the news and in the media. You hear different like viewpoints and political points from just people that are, that we surround ourselves with. Like hearing things on both sides of this, if we go to like the Israel and Palestine conflict right now, like I have Palestinian people that I've talked to and heard their perspective. I have people, Jewish people is on the Israel side of things that I hear and talk to, and so it's like it just it's so messy and scary for me to like dive
Totally.
into honestly and like try to make like a statement on it, and so it's something where um I feel like approaching it from a point of view of like curiosity is always an important thing to do and like really leaning into the side of it of like government versus religion. But there is also like this intersection where those two like very much exist together, like you guys are talking about
Totally.
here. And so it's like how do you decipher that and get a pull those two apart? And the question that got brought up with that is like, Cameron, you're talking about British state. So to repeat this back, right? You were talking about um you were titling it the British state of Palestine. Were you saying British territory of Palestine that we
Yeah.
sent these groups to? But isn't there a lot of like, I mean, I guess that's where you get into like the history of this and the conflict. Like, isn't there a lot of claim to that land prior to it being like a British territory or a British colony that's like, hey,
Oh yeah.
like Palestine was never there according to some
The
aspect of this,
Bible.
and the other side is yeah. So the Bible, okay, but hey,
Literally,
it's a pretty
that's
prominent
the problem with
text.
this one is that the most purchased book in human history, the most read
Yeah,
book in human history, is an allegory written 2,000 years ago. And that's what we're using as basic fact for all three of these religions. I mean, the Old Testament covers all of them. And that's the biggest problem. And I think that's what we run into when you start criticizing this stuff is if you're undereducated and don't really know what you're talking about, it is really dicey to be able to kind of criticize a country that has the Star of David literally written on their flag. But I can say the same thing about Saudi Arabia. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to kind of compare both of these so that we're on the same foot on it. Every country on earth has a leader. Every country on earth has a Congress or a parliament or some sort of system of government that they decide policies like every other country. And every country on earth has foreign policy that we can fucking criticize. I don't care what religion is behind it. I don't care who your leader is. I can criticize North Korea as much as I can criticize Saudi Arabia, as much as I can criticize the United States, is as much as I'm going to criticize Israel. They're all people
boom.
making real life practical decisions that affect all of us. It's important to recognize religious factors and ideologies and thinking behind what's going on, but being muzzled because you're afraid of like being labeled an anti-Semite because you can talk shit about Benjamin Netanyahu, that's crazy. It's a dumb argument by stupid people to try to disarm you completely. And it's like, or invalidate your opinions because they don't know the difference between foreign policy and reading something out of Leviticus. It's I'm really passionate about this one because you'll see it on CNN where like someone makes a valid criticism of Israel and they're labeled an anti-Semite by Scott Jennings on the panel. It's like, okay, so you can't have an intellectual, an honest conversation without the fear of being labeled anti-Israel, anti-Saudi Arabia, anti-whatever. That's why I think, from our opinion, I'm a non-religious dude in Colorado. I don't give a fuck about any of your sides. So like, I'm going to criticize the lack of human rights in Saudi Arabia just as I'm going to criticize the bombing of children in the Gaza Strip. Like, it's you can criticize bombing hospitals and schools and not be an anti-Semite.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was well said. Like, and I really, it's hard and it's dicey, right? Like, it really is, and that's where for everything that Cameron just said, I really do try to look at it as people interacting with people and looking at it from a from a state perspective. Like, this is a nation state that is making moves. Let's judge it on that factor, and it's hard to do that because of all the historical and all of the pogroms and the genocides that has happened with the Jewish community. They are the most persecuted people in all of human history. So all of that does need to be taken into account. It does. But it shouldn't separate how we treat they are a country now. They are no longer a nation without a state. Like Israel is a state with a constitution and a parliament, right? So like we should judge them as any other nation state. But it's tough because even then, like, I think the idea of Israel in itself is a beautiful thing. Again, for people that have been persecuted and haven't had their own nation and they have it, it is a beautiful thing. But again, we do have to look at what they're doing as a country, as a nation. What are their policies and what actions are they taking? And that's where I think it's fair to what you said, Cameron. That like it's important to remember that they're people. No one person or one type of people is better than any other type. And we have to look at it at like the geopolitical chess move that it is. But it's hard. It's really hard
Yeah.
because religion is just injected into all of this.
And I think on the
Love it.
same note there, it's the same conversation when you're saying that this war in Iran should not be happening, it's not defending the regime in Iran. I think it's safe to
Yeah.
say all of us would agree that the Ayatollah is far too extreme. They're treating their people like shit. The executions that were rolling out this week are just like mind blowing. It's horrific what's happening there. So it's like, in no way can we conflate like criticizing our government's military action against Iran should not be, oh, I'm supporting this regime. It's like that's just lazy.
Yeah.
And I'm
Especially
hearing
with
that a
a
lot too.
nation
It's
state
crazy.
that is like, again, like the US is now at war because of policy from this other country. And a lot of Americans are about to die in this, like this very much affects us. And so it is fair to criticize it as a country. But again, it's dicey, it's hard, and you will get labeled a lot. And there are very valid arguments on both sides.
Yeah. Well, I think that was well said, and how you guys framed that there. Certainly perspective that I like to share there. So thanks for putting that to words and wording that in such a nice way as you two like to do.
Yeah,
Well,
get a little
Okay.
like,
spicy.
and it's the most complicated region in the world, and it is
Yeah.
maybe one of the most complicated situations that's ever existed in world history. And so, like, we're just scratching the surface. And I think you
Yeah.
do need a perspective. Like, we will never have a true perspective on it unless you are someone that grows up in Israel or in Beirut, and you're in the middle of it. So, like, there is some degrees of separation that we can even get to. So, it's a huge subject that you could spend your whole life studying.
Yeah. You guys had mentioned like diving a little further into another topic, which we can, or like you mentioned that while I stepped away for a sec, but um, what I think is coming up in my mind to what you're saying right now is, all right, we're talking about let's get back to the Iranian regime that is in place that we're trying to take over, that we're trying or not trying to take over, trying to get a change to. But let's talk about like who's currently backing this existing regime and what that looks like. Because in my mind, we have some adversaries that are backing this regime. The allies that we have in the region, from everything I'm seeing and understanding, like we're pissing them off quite a bit, and due to our just like lack of planning and definition of what's going on here. And so all this is to beg the question, the overall question and theme that I'm asking here is like, are we seeing a shifting of powers and allies, and who's supporting who, and where is this going to go? Because I don't see it going to a great spot with from my knowledge, like the China and the Russia backing that exists here and the relationship that's continuing to go on there. We talked about the Strait of Hormuz and it being shut off. Well, not for China and Russia, right? So we're seeing, in my mind, it's like, are we on the precipice of like massive change as far as like world power and allies go? Are we fucking this up?
In a word, yes. In a bunch of words, what I find very fascinating about this is the Strait of Hormuz is a vital access point for the world. For 20% of the world's oil goes through that point, but
Yeah.
80% of that is going to Africa and Asia, does not come to the United States. This is not the supply of oil to Europe, it's not the supply of oil to the US. I think some of it goes down to Australia and New Zealand and some of our ally states. But for the most part, this oil is not does not affect the United States. The reason for the prices going up is it affecting everyone else. Um, which is where kind of the relationship with our allies is changing rapidly because of multiple things. The one, you can't have a guy sitting in office for a year shitting on our allies at every turn. You can't be threatening Denmark. You can't be threatening Canada, yelling at NATO every turn. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, who's in? And then like hold this weird macho man argument of like, oh, I don't actually need you. This was a test. We'll remember who responded. But it's like, at no point did our allies have like a coherent plan or a strategy or like what the fuck we're doing here. So I get like the hesitation on that side, and we're having like Japan, I think, was the one who's kind of come to the table and said that they'll help out, and it's because obviously this is a lot of supply to Japan. But we're getting they're kind of playing the president. They're using what they need to say to get through this. I noticed you had that $56 billion energy investment. I'll believe that when the fucking single dollar is spent. Um, but they're what Japan is doing is just playing the system, and what Russia is doing is profiting off this, because if there's 20% less oil in the world and all of that is going to Asia, who the fuck do you think is going to make up for that? It's Russia. So they're selling more, so gaining more money. We are taking our defense systems out of Ukraine. So all of like the missile and drone defense systems, we're pulling from Ukraine as we speak, which is another gigantic win for Putin, who should have had this war finished 3 years ago, but he's a
Yeah.
fucking dumb piece of shit too. So they're loving it. China's loving this because now what moral authority do we have to step in Taiwan? I mean, outside of them producing 90% of the chips or whatever, the AI chips, that's going to be an issue. We have no foot to stand on. We called for our allies. The next day, China's Navy surrounded Taiwan. It's like, okay, so they're calling our bluff. And what can we say? We just took out Venezuela, for fuck's sake. So yeah, we're getting weakened all over the place. I'm pretty sure NATO's done, which, God, pour one out for NATO. It's one of the better ones. I mean, the Warsaw Pact can suck it, dude.
World
Like,
try.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
I
a
mean,
good college try there.
and not to, I fear that this is going to take it down a whole other path, but like, how long is NATO going to go away if it's like, does all this shit end when the next president comes in to play? And I know that we have some deep thoughts on like what this then evolves into for future presidency in the United States. But like, if we screw up NATO, if we screw up the G7, like if that just gets like, you know, shot in the back of the head and it goes away due to
Middle of
what's
Fifth
happening
Avenue.
here, like, does that is that like, can we slap a band-aid on that with the next president and get back together and be like, hey, sorry, that was fucked up, that was wrong, or are we like past the point of no return here?
No, because the problem we have is that every 4 years there can be a new president. So like, and at this point we've showed that whatever deal we write up, a new president comes in and rips it up. So
Yeah.
those other countries will go on for sure. I think there's a world where NATO goes on and they just say, finally, we don't need America anymore. They're more hassle than we want. And we're left out. Like we are further, like America first, we are alienating ourselves from any support system that we had, where we were threatening to invade Greenland Right, like, if you have a treaty, a treaty with allies, like, the only great, like, mortal sin you can do is threaten to take over territory of your ally, and we were doing that. Like, we literally like, Greenland was mobilizing forces for a potential US invasion, and now we're begging for their help. So and that's a huge sign of weakness, like, it just
Yeah.
is. And, like, that's not even, like, a political thing. That is a massive sign of weakness to start to say that it's mission accomplished, we've done it, their army's destroyed, but we need NATO allies, and why aren't you helping? It's a huge sign that the world is distancing itself from America. And also the fact that how successful Iran has been. Like, they just took down an F-35, right? Which is a state of the art proprietary US aircraft that was just taken down. So there's been a lot of cracks that are showing up, which is concerning. And then again, the Gerald R. Ford has a laundry fire and is getting taken to Crete. Like, there's been a lot of, I mean, it hasn't gone how they thought that it would, and it hasn't gone
Yeah.
according to plan.
I mean, I just think of like bullying a bunch of kids at school and then all of a sudden being like, hey, I want you to, you know, come over and hang out and let's like
That's
go
exactly what's
bully
happening.
this other kid together. It's like, what?
Yeah,
You're an
exactly.
asshole, right?
And it's the
You're a
same
complete
level of
dick.
mental intelligence that's going on between a
Yeah.
fifth grader and the fucking president. It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. I mean, NATO's the Article 5 of NATO, which is like the trigger point, has only been used once in history, and it was when we got attacked on 9/11, and they responded. They came to Iraq and Afghanistan with that, well, Afghanistan at least. So it's like we're yelling about something that has actually only benefited us. And I understand Trump's like they're not paying their GDP or whatever the fuck. Like, I'm sorry other countries don't value the military as much as we do. They would rather, have schools and education or
Free
healthcare and
healthcare.
all that fucking dumb liberal shit. But you know, it's just infuriating that this man thinks that we are better than everyone else, that we've gotten to this point by ourselves, and then immediately like, hey, where's my help? Where the fuck is everyone? Oh, I'm gonna remember. It's like, buddy, you just tried to invade Denmark for fuck's sake. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? I don't get it.
It's
It is
American
gonna
hubris.
cause so much damage.
It's like true American hubris that is now finally getting thrown in our face. And I think the rest of the world sees it and are kind of laughing and kind of finally saying, finally, the American arrogance is getting thrown in their face and we're not gonna help. To the point where Switzerland, who's been neutral for fucking
Historically,
1,000 years, just broke their
famously neutral.
neutrality and said we're against this war. So like we're even pissing off Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, and
You
I
know how
mean,
much you have
taking
to
it,
do to piss off Switzerland, Rhett?
I mean, can't believe it's taken us this long to do it with everything going on.
Truly.
But no, I mean, I think this thing goes into like Cameron, you were just in New Zealand for a friend's wedding, and like you were saying prior to us hitting record here, like tell your experience about being American there. Like,
That fucking sucks. It's embarrassing. I hate it.
yeah,
Everyone, you can tell that they want to say something. But Kiwis are far too nice and far too polite to just come out and say it. But I got like, so what's going on with the US? That was like their lead in. And it was like 5 different people on the streets of Queenstown, or like
yeah,
waiters or staff at this resort that the wedding was at. Just like, so what's going on there? Or what's your thoughts on the US? And it's like, all right, here we go. It sucks. Not thrilled about having to defend this country that I love so goddamn much being just defaced and taken advantage of by this orange baboon. It's everything from like this war is making lives more miserable. I mean, before we left, we got notified by Air New Zealand that they were going to seriously start considering canceling flights over the next month because of fuel shortages. They're like prime minister came out and said that, hey, we're going to have to start like rationing. They're an island nation in the middle of fucking nowhere, and
yeah.
they need diesel fuel and fuel to come in, and it just became a lot harder. And for what is that's what pisses me off more than I think anything is what are we accomplishing outside of creating an entire new generation of people who hate the United States? And famously, Iran is the one who has all these proxies, who does have the money to be able to afford all these things. All we're doing is setting ourselves back even further. This is going to be another endless war. And even if we don't send over the massive amount of troops that we did in Iraq and Afghanistan, then it's just going to be a proxy war, which again in our history fails. We and we're being now I'm dying.
Got him fired up. Love it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we're
I
being
mean,
led by
Took
Pete
long
Hegseth,
enough.
for fuck's sake. And I know we were talking about like titles matter and stuff, technically the Department of Defense is still called the Department of Defense. You can't just change shit like this. But because they're petulant children, he puts his Twitter name as Department of War and goes by that now. And then that's the thing. It's like they're not it's a perfect metaphor for this fucking administration is that they say something, they enact it, and constitutionally it's like, no, you can't do this. And they're like, whatever, we'll just call it
We're
that.
gonna do it
And everyone
anyway.
else can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, nice try, buddy. We're just gonna do it because we want to.
Yeah, it's the Trump Kennedy Center. That has to be done by like a congressional act to rename it. And what they do, they just hyphenated it. Fuck it. We'll just throw his name at the top.
Gulf
Crazy.
of America, same thing.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, we have seen. Well, I don't know. Again, the whole reason we're having this podcast is I don't know enough about this shit to like speak to it confidently. But having in the past, like, what mountains? There was a mountain that like what Trump, president before Trump, was it Denali, Mount Denali, that was renamed, and then the name flipped
Yeah,
back.
Mount McKinley got changed to Denali. Yeah.
And then it got flipped back again. It's like this like renaming. I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
think so.
interesting to me. It's like it's just this
Yeah,
like
that's
stroke of power. Like that's what I want to call
1984.
it.
That's literally one of the central plots of 1984 is changing the language and the words and the thoughts that you have to essentially infect your political way of thinking. And they're doing that. That's what the Gulf of
Yeah.
America is. Like, don't get it twisted. That's what naming it the Department of War is. And everyone says, what's the big idea? And now we're at war again. Like that shit does matter. Like naming
Yeah.
conventions and the zeitgeist of how you communicate things, like, matters, and they know that. They're
Yeah,
playing to that.
everyone remembers Mexico will pay for the wall. No one remembers that Mexico didn't pay for shit. Like, it'll stick with you, the stupid sayings, but like the execution, no one remembers. No one cares because it's stuck with you. The America first. It's like, name one thing this man has done for America. Like, it's crazy. I'm seeing, it was like 46% of farmers are going like, either going to go through bankruptcy or they're closing down or they're losing money or some crazy number. And like, you're not even protecting our farmers. So it's like, what the
No.
fuck are we doing?
And then
I'm
the
just a little
farmers come back
befuddled
and
at
they
like what's the game plan? What's the strategy outside of Eric and Don Jr. flying to these countries after Trump is there and securing billion-dollar real estate deals? I don't know who's winning here.
yeah. Well, follow the money. Who's winning?
Well,
Not
yeah,
us.
Eric and Donnie Jr.
Yeah.
They're fucking killing it. I saw an
Um,
article that was like praising Donald Trump Jr.'s investment acumen. I'm like, are you fucking high? Like, he's part of it. Oh god,
All
I
right.
can't with these
So,
people.
I think this like everything that was just shared and said, like, was this everything that we've talked about so far? Like, what I'm kind of hearing is like this was inevitable. Was this at some point in time? Was this gonna happen regardless of who was in office in the United States? Was Israel gonna do this regardless of who we had over here? Was if it wasn't this presidential term, was it in the next two?
But
It,
even Dick Cheney didn't want to do this. Like Donald
yeah,
Rumsfeld didn't do this. Like he's been trying to get us into this battle for 30 fucking years. Ever since Netanyahu's been in power, he's been trying to get US presidents and senators and congresspeople to get on board with this attacking Iran. He just found the dumbest fucking person to actually do it. So I don't know if it would have been inevitable. Like, yes, maybe the US would have elected a moron like this eventually, but every other person has recognized that this is a horrible idea, and he did it anyway. And I
yeah,
think it's not that hard if you just praise the guy, say you love his politics, and praise his gold toilet. He'll fucking do anything for you.
Yeah. I do think I don't know if it was inevitable, but it was always very highly likely, especially with just Israel's existence, like, which is another like sad fact, but like it was going to happen eventually. And America's always been bad with diplomacy, but we tried it. I mean, we did try it with the Iran nuclear deal. Like, we tried to have some sort of diplomacy to at least push this out to the next 50, make it another administration's problem. But Yeah, you rip up the deal, and then you name your Department of Defense the Department of War, and then you surround yourself with a lot of pro-Israel, AIPAC, donors. With Trump, now we know that, of course, it was inevitable with Trump, but I think it's the speed in which it's happening, it's the lack of strategy, it's the lack of transparency, and it's the lies and the amount of force, and like we're not getting told the truth. We're not getting told what
Yeah.
really is the end game here. And yeah,
I think the Iran nuclear deal is really just a great example of how dumb this fucking all is. It's like we had this agreement in place. It was signed by not only the US, France, Italy, the UK, but it got China and Russia on it too. And it was a step by step plan and how to regulate this and how to watchdog this and how much material you can be producing. Like there was a structure for this so that we could avoid this situation. But Trump's hatred of anything Obama or Biden
yeah,
refuses to accept that it was a good idea. And it had its holes like any diplomatic process is going to have. And like it needed more verifications and we needed to be on top of it. But by all accounts, they were following it. And I'm sure there are situations like you was mentioning earlier, they were trying to side skirt rules or whatever. But that's why we had their biggest allies in on it too. That's why you had Russia and China there. Like it was a framework that was working. And for some fucking reason, it's our hubris. It's this fucking leader thinks that he was smarter than everyone else in the room and got rid of it. I saw today that the US is preparing a potential Iran peace talk. Number one, no missile program for 5 years. Two, zero uranium enrichment. Three, decommissioning of nuclear reactors. Four, arms control treaties with regional countries. Five, no financing for regional proxies. And six, strict outline observing protocols around the creation and use of centrifuges. That was all the Iran nuclear deal. That was
that was the
everything we
deal.
already had. And that is coming out today that's the peace talks on this war that we just killed 175 children at school to get the same thing just because it's not signed by the black president. Are you fucking kidding me?
I know. Well, that's
Yeah.
where it does go to. It is a sign that it's the ultimate destruction of Iran. That is what is. There's warmongers certainly within the administration that have wanted this. Um, because
Well,
yeah,
and
they're
yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a side to this that is the end game is civil war and unrest, and that is coming from the Israeli side. And I don't know. Obviously, tinfoil hats take it with a grain of salt, but there is this theory that that is the whole goal, that there's a reason there is no end game because the end game is chaos and it wants civil war. And if Iran can be obsessed with killing each other, they're not going to be focused on Israel, who can go after Lebanon and Beirut, wherever the fuck they want, apparently, and no one will give a shit. So it's like, if that's the reason, and then that's the ultimate end goal is just to create civil war and chaos, that we are so much more fucked than I think anyone realizes. And I'm afraid that we got sucked into this without asking. I think Rubio literally explained that they were about to do this, and instead of us looking weak and not being a part of it, we decided to join without asking. And I think they are now realizing it. And it's only 22 days into it, 23 days into it.
I know. Well, and it has only escalated too, because in that initial speech that Trump gave, right, he said like this is some major combat operations. It's going to last a few weeks. Well, now we have 5,000 Marines getting deployed, and I think they're finalizing plans to take Karg Island. And we just give them that ultimatum. Like you don't give ultimatums unless you're planning some serious further escalation. And there's an interesting professor out there. He used to teach at the Air Force Academy. His name is Robert Pape. He has a good Substack that you guys should check out. But he used to teach like air campaigns in the Air Force Academy, and he's talking about how there's never been a successful regime change war purely through air power. And this is what we've been saying: is we want regime change war. There's not going to be boots on the ground. We're not going to rule it out, but we're not going to say whatever. But I mean, this, in my opinion, this does inevitably go to boots on the ground and a ground invasion. In which case, it, Vietnam, Iraq, like you're talking about a decades long conflict, at least. And again, for what? Like regime change, strip out their nuclear. Like you can't bomb away science. Like they're gonna have their nuclear program, and so it's a quagmire. It is. It's finally a problem that Trump cannot get out of.
No. And honestly, it's the one time he's talked himself into it. I think the whole like they bombed all the nuclear facilities, and like anyone who questioned it, it was like, nope, we obliterated all of it. There's nothing remaining. And then they're trying to use the excuse of they're weeks away from a nuclear weapon. And it's like, okay, so which time were you lying to us? It's like, there has to be one
Yeah.
or the other. There is no third option here. So you either lied to us back then or you're lying to us now. I think they're lying both scenarios, but
Yes, of course, because there was no way to actually verify those bunker buster bombs that they actually destroyed. And plus, like, again, it's a massive country that's the size of the entire east coast of the U.S., full of mountains. Like, it's hidden throughout this mountainous country, and you can't bomb that away. It's going to take boots on the ground, methodically going through a mountainous country to try and strip this away. And you can't. It's already lost. It
strip
is like,
what away? Like the remnants of a fallen government that is still there. It's still backed by a good percentage of the country. I know there's these protests, but we do need to keep in mind that politics isn't as left and right as it is in the United States everywhere else. If you're a conservative in Canada, it's very different than being a conservative here. We need to understand that, like, just because they're protesting on the streets for like women's rights doesn't mean that they're sitting there being like, we want to be just like the United States. And I think we conflate that way too often.
yeah.
That we just think like everyone wants to be like us. And it's like, buddy, I think at a certain point, people want us to stay the fuck away from their country.
Truly.
You don't say. Maybe that would I don't know. That would help if we didn't feel the need to get our hands in every single thing going on out there. We wouldn't have as much hatred towards us. We wouldn't have as much need to interject everywhere we are and be the I don't know, the power
It's
the
Team America
powerful
World Police.
yeah, world police. There you go.
Well, where
Exactly.
does it stop? Because right now, South Sudan is going through a civil war that's killed 1.3 or 1.2 million people. Civilians have just been getting murdered every day, and it's by being supported by one of our allies. I don't want to misquote him here because that's kind of a big charge there, but you know, there are atrocities happening everywhere. And like, at what point does the United States, we need to step back and be like, okay, one, we can't police everyone, but two, even if we try, we're not good at it. Look who runs Afghanistan. It's the fucking Taliban. And we were
Yeah.
there for 22 years. And it's like, when do we look in the mirror and realize we've done this before? We just did this. And like I said at the top here, it's like, this is the first time in our relatively short lives that we're actually watching the wheels of history repeat itself. And it's like, I'm taking crazy pills because we're seeing the same thing. The people being like, well, they're celebrating in Tehran. It's like, I remember them tearing down that Saddam Hussein statue. I remember them pulling it in the streets of Baghdad, and like the celebrations were crazy. We were in that country for another 21 years. It's like, we haven't learned shit from the past. And this isn't even that far. Like Keith Olbermann was hosting shows when this was going on. Like this is
Yeah.
things that happened in our fucking lifetime. It's crazy. I mean, Tucker Carlson didn't have the bow tie, but you know, it's it happened in our lifetime, and we're just doing it again.
I know.
I would be curious, and maybe I don't know. Maybe this is a good spot to wrap this conversation for this time. But I would be curious on like how we have benefited from the history of wars like this and being there for 20 years and like who loses, who wins. Is there a side of this where this is profitable for
For the
some people?
1%, yes. I would like
Yeah.
even going back to the Banana Wars, which is we should have a whole episode on the Banana Wars. But we fought for in the from like 1903 to 1920. We invaded. I'll pull up the list right now. We invaded Colombia, who owned Panama in 1903. We invaded Honduras in 1903. We had the Spanish-American War, which took place in the same time period. We also invaded Nicaragua in 1909. We invaded Mexico in 1913, Haiti in 1915, and then the Dominican Republic in 1916. All of that was so that we could protect the business interests of the United Fruit Company, which was selling bananas to fat Americans. And so, like, we have already went like it's a long-standing American policy to protect American business interests by regime change and coups abroad. And so, yeah, BP and all these other oil barons and the 1% in the United States are going to make a fuck ton of money from this, and that's always how it's been. Even when these regime change wars are successful, which a lot of them have been, even you can look at Venezuela and Maduro, it always leads to an immense amount of pain and suffering and instability in those countries, and it causes so much pain and torment has been caused in Central and South America from these coups. Look at Iraq; they're not any safer or more stabilized. So even when they're successful, history shows us that it just leads to more chaos and destruction and instability, and it profits only a very small amount of people in the United States who have these business interests that want these wars in the first place. So will we see the benefit from maybe like did we see the benefit of the Iraq War? Any of us who lived through it? No, right?
God no. We got good movies out of it.
We got American Sniper, baby.
Yeah, great movies. Ikis, I will push back on you really quickly on the Venezuela regime change. We just put the vice president in charge. We didn't change shit for
True.
regime.
True. We
Yeah,
just
but
found a
she's at least cooperative with what we want over there, right? Like,
Yeah,
and
she's
Maduro
sucking off
wasn't being
Rubio.
that way. Yeah.
well, and to bring it back to the very beginning, like this all started from a regime change coup that we did in 1953. Like those the historical record is that the revolution happened because of this coup, and now we're trying to do another regime change war. So it's short-sighted. It only benefits a few people, in my opinion. And we're getting into the same quagmire where there's already been a lot of innocent people that died. Kids, children have died for fucking what? Like, why did those kids deserve to die for any of this?
Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse. And again, who does really benefit? And it's a question we should always be asking during this.
All right.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts there, Cameron?
Well, boys, when you're sad about what's going on, just remember the old presidents were dumb and the new president is smart. So
What a way to end it there.
Solved.
I don't know. I feel like this is a good spot to maybe stop for this time around. We've gone almost an hour and a half here. And if we want any feedback, I don't know if we can go any longer than that. People will listen to us babble on for, another hour and a half, maybe
Fair.
not. But I don't know. I think we left with some things to still be talked about. I still want to know what's up with the Kurds. I want to talk about like what might be going
We'll get
on
there.
with like boots on the ground. Ikis, I mean, you want to bring up the Bronze Age, the late Bronze Age Israelite
Oh, yeah.
exodus. I mean,
We're getting there.
we got the banana wars, just like some more context to get into like what the fuck is actually going on and what it's actually happening. So
Well, and there's literally breaking news every minute of this war that's going on. The situation changes, and again, like as of this recording, we're like 24 hours out from a potential invasion. So there's going to be a lot to talk about.
all right, cool.
Yep.
Cool, fellas. All right. I'm gonna press stop here, but I'm gonna act like we're saying goodbye, and I'll edit this piece out. But all right. Well, goodbye, guys. Let's see how the next 24 hours go, and then we'll touch base on whatever the hell we get ourselves into next time.
God bless America.
All right, bud. See you guys.